Welcome to the Midnight Mind. Please consider subscribing to the channel if you're new here and give the video a like while you're at it. It really helps the channel. It's midnight, and that means one thing. It's time to enter the mind of Nietzsche. Have you ever noticed how the more comfortable your life becomes, the more restless your soul feels? You scroll, you consume, you rest. Yet something remains unsatisfied, whispering in the background like a faint alarm you pretend not to hear. It's the quiet discomfort that comes when a person trades their potential for ease. Nietzsche called this the sickness of the modern soul, the slow decay of those who no longer suffer enough to grow. Nietzsche's last man is not a villain. He is not cruel or malicious. He's worse. He's harmless. The last man is the one who desires nothing higher, who avoids struggle, who believes that comfort is the meaning of life. He is the final stage of humanity, the end of striving. In Thus Spoke Zarathustra, Nietzsche described him with chilling precision. They have left the regions where it was hard to live, for they need warmth. They still love their neighbour and rub against him, for they need warmth. The last man smiles. He avoids pain. He repeats words like happiness and well-being, as if they were sacred truths. He says, "We have invented happiness," and blinks. His life is a cycle of small pleasures, screens, safety, sedation. He believes he is free, but he has merely been tamed. The wildness of life, the chaos that creates greatness, has been bred out of him. And Nietzsche warned, when humanity forgets how to suffer meaningfully, it ceases to live. You may think this warning belongs to philosophers and dreamers, but look around. Our civilization worships comfort like an idol. We measure success by convenience, by how little we must endure. Our highest virtue is ease, yet this obsession with comfort breeds a quiet despair. The more we remove friction from life, the more meaningless life becomes. The muscles of the soul, courage, endurance, discipline, begin to atrophy. Nietzsche saw this coming in the 19th century, long before the age of algorithms and instant gratification. He saw the shadows of the last man emerging from the ruins of religion and tradition. A generation with no gods left to believe in, no causes left to die for. They would replace purpose with pleasure, calling it progress. What is love? What is creation? What is longing? What is a star? The last man asks, and then blinks. To understand Nietzsche's warning, you must understand what he meant by the death of God. It wasn't about religion alone, it was about the collapse of meaning itself. When the highest values of civilization die, something must replace them, and Nietzsche knew what would fill that void: comfort, consumption, mediocrity. The small pleasures of the herd. Humanity, he feared, would trade transcendence for triviality. The modern world is the perfect breeding ground for the last man. Our technologies promise freedom but deliver dependency. Our entertainment numbs us into complacency. We chase mental health but reject the discomfort that real healing requires. We demand safe spaces from words, ideas, and emotions that might disturb us, as if peace could exist without confrontation. We've become expert escape artists, running from pain as if it were evil rather than essential. Nietzsche didn't despise comfort itself. He despised what comfort does when it becomes the highest good. When the human spirit stops reaching upward. When it chooses rest over risk, pleasure over purpose, decay begins. The last man no longer creates, he maintains. He no longer strives, he copes. And in doing so, he becomes the final product of a civilization that has lost its hunger for greatness. But here's the paradox. The last man thinks he is happy. He lives longer, works less, suffers rarely. His life is full of small satisfactions, entertainment, medicine, distraction. Yet beneath the surface lies an invisible death, the death of depth, the death of the inner life. He no longer feels the need to look inward, to wrestle with himself, to confront his shadow. In escaping pain, he has escaped meaning. Nietzsche believed that greatness, true vitality, demands suffering. Not suffering for its own sake, but the kind that forges strength and individuality. Every act of creation, every moment of transformation, requires the courage to face discomfort. One must still have chaos in oneself, he wrote, to give birth to a dancing star. Without that chaos, we become sterile, incapable of giving birth to anything new within ourselves. The last man fears chaos. He prefers predictability, the illusion of control. But control is the opposite of life. Life is wild, uncertain, often painful. To live fully is to risk breaking apart. Yet this is precisely what the last man refuses to do. He avoids conflict, avoids passion, avoids intensity. In protecting himself from pain, he also shields himself from greatness. His life becomes smooth and shallow. If you look closely, you can see the symptoms of the last man everywhere. The endless pursuit of comfort disguised as self-care. The obsession with productivity that replaces purpose. The constant need to be entertained, distracted, validated. The fear of silence, where the truth of one's emptiness might speak too loudly. Nietzsche saw these as the signs of a species that had forgotten its own depths. And perhaps the most terrifying thing about the last man is this: he is content. He has no idea that he has lost anything. His chains are soft and invisible. He no longer dreams of freedom because he doesn't know what freedom is. The burden of becoming oneself. The last man has traded that burden for the warm anesthesia of comfort. And he believes he is happy. Nietzsche's prophecy was not about the distant future. It was about now, about us. He saw that humanity would reach a point where it could fulfill every desire instantly, and yet be spiritually empty. He saw that our inventions would make life easy, but not meaningful. And he warned that unless we learn to bear suffering willingly, we will descend into mediocrity with a smile on our faces. So ask yourself, when was the last time you truly struggled for something? Not because you had to, but because you chose to. When was the last time you endured discomfort to grow stronger? The modern mind seeks pleasure without pain, progress without sacrifice, wisdom without wounds. But the soul doesn't evolve through ease, it evolves through friction, the resistance that forces it to awaken. The comfort you crave may be the very thing keeping you asleep. Nietzsche's warning was never about rejecting pleasure or technology or peace. It was about refusing to be pacified by them. He called for the rebirth of the human will, the awakening of individuals who could rise beyond the narcotic of comfort. He believed that only those who dare to suffer, to struggle, to create, could keep humanity alive. The danger of comfort is not that it feels good, it's that it teaches you to stop moving. Comfort whispers that everything is fine, that there's no need to question, no need to strive, no need to confront the parts of yourself that still ache for meaning. Slowly, you become domesticated. Your instincts soften, your hunger fades, and the fire that once pushed you forward turns into the faint glow of a screen. You're no longer alive in the full sense. You are maintained. Nietzsche understood that this process doesn't happen through tyranny, but through seduction. The last man is not forced into obedience, he chooses it willingly. The chains are velvet, the prison self-decorated. This is what makes the modern form of control so insidious. It disguises itself as freedom. You're told to do what makes you happy. Yet happiness is defined for you by algorithms, advertising, and social consensus. The individual becomes a consumer of meanings rather than a creator of them. Carl Jung later described this same dynamic as the triumph of the collective over the individual psyche. When a person stops listening to the inner voice, the self as Jung called it, they begin to live according to outer expectations. The herd mind takes over. It rewards safety and punishes deviation. It praises the predictable and condemns the dangerous. In time, the soul forgets how to think for itself. What remains is an efficient, docile unit. A last man in psychological uniform. Comfort breeds conformity because it teaches avoidance. To remain comfortable, one must not challenge the consensus. One must not disturb others, nor allow oneself to be disturbed. So people learn to mimic the herd's emotions, opinions, and even its moral vocabulary. They say the right things, feel the right things, and live according to the values of the group. This imitation gives the illusion of belonging, but what it really offers is erasure. The self dissolves into the collective. Nietzsche called this herd morality, a morality born not from strength but from fear. It's the morality of the timid, who declare humility and equality to be virtues because they fear the pain of comparison. They praise moderation because intensity exposes weakness. They celebrate comfort because suffering reveals character. The individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe, Nietzsche once wrote. If you try it, you will often be lonely, and sometimes frightened. But no price is too high to pay for the privilege of owning yourself. The last man doesn't own himself. He rents his identity from the marketplace. Every opinion, every desire, every conviction is borrowed. He repeats slogans instead of forming thoughts. He seeks validation instead of vision. He fears being wrong more than being empty. And this emptiness is contagious. It spreads like a quiet fog through entire societies. Comfort becomes a form of mass hypnosis, a collective sleepwalk into spiritual decay. Modern technology amplifies this hypnosis. Every notification, every convenience, every algorithmic pleasure reinforces the lesson. Stay comfortable, stay distracted, stay predictable. The phone becomes a pocket philosopher, whispering a single command. You're fed endless novelty, but no depth. Endless connection, but no intimacy. You're entertained, but not awakened. The result is a paradoxical exhaustion. You're tired, yet never truly alive. Nietzsche would have seen this as the perfect mechanism of the last man's reign, a civilization that keeps its people comfortable, keeps them controllable. No tyranny is necessary when pleasure itself becomes the leash. Bread and circuses have evolved into dopamine and distraction. Why rebel when life feels good enough? Why strive when struggle is optional? Why question when questions make you feel uncomfortable? Psychologically, the human being is built to adapt, to become efficient at whatever environment rewards. In a world that rewards comfort, the psyche adapts by weakening. It loses the tolerance for pain, uncertainty, and solitude, the three crucibles where individuality is born. Jung called these the dark nights of the soul. Without them, the ego never encounters the self. It remains shallow, untested, and untransformed. The last man avoids darkness, and therefore never becomes whole. This avoidance has a cost. What we refuse to confront does not disappear, it festers. The repressed hunger for challenge, for danger, for transcendence, it turns inward. Depression, anxiety, addiction, nihilism. These are all the symptoms of souls that have been starved of purpose. Modern man no longer fights lions or gods, he fights boredom. And boredom, Nietzsche warned, is the beginning of despair. He who despises himself still respects himself as one who despises, he wrote. But the last man no longer even despises, he only shrugs. Conformity feels safe because it spares us from the terror of freedom. Freedom demands self-definition, responsibility, the courage to stand alone. Most would rather be comfortable together than courageous apart. And so the herd grows. It rewards mediocrity, punishes originality, and neutralizes intensity. The fire of individuality is extinguished in the name of harmony. Everyone smiles. No one truly lives. In this sense, comfort becomes a kind of moral anesthesia. It dulls our sensitivity to truth. It prevents us from seeing how much our life is automated. Our routines, our desires, our values. We become like actors playing the role of a person, performing authenticity while feeling hollow inside. The more we chase the image of happiness, the further we drift from the reality of being alive. Nietzsche saw this hollowing as the greatest crisis of the modern age, the nihilism that would follow the death of God. Without a higher aim, humanity turns inward, seeking stimulation instead of meaning. But stimulation cannot satisfy the soul. It only distracts it. The will, deprived of purpose, begins to rot. The result is a civilization that appears vibrant but is spiritually vacant. A society of last men, blinking contentedly at their own decline. Jung would later call this the crisis of individuation, the loss of connection between the conscious ego and the deeper self. When a person refuses the call to grow, the unconscious rebels. It manifests in anxiety, resentment, or apathy. These are not illnesses, but signals. The soul's protest against a life too small for it. Nietzsche's last man ignores these signals. He medicates them. He calls them mental health issues, rather than existential alarms. And so, the sickness spreads. What Nietzsche offered instead was brutal but liberating honesty. Life is suffering. Not as punishment, but as necessity. The will must meet resistance to become strong. The spirit must endure chaos to discover order. Comfort is not evil, but it must be earned through struggle, not inherited through ease. When comfort becomes automatic, it turns from reward into poison. The same warmth that soothes can also suffocate. The psychological mechanisms of comfort are subtle because they exploit noble desires, peace, happiness, safety. Yet beneath these desires lies a deeper longing, the will to overcome. When that will is denied, the human being collapses inward. He becomes passive, resentful, docile. He dreams small dreams. He desires without daring. He lives without meaning. And he calls this peace. Nietzsche's diagnosis was harsh, but it was meant as a challenge, not a condemnation. He wanted humanity to wake up, to feel again, to will again, to suffer again with purpose. He saw in the last man not an inevitability, but a warning. A civilization addicted to comfort stands on the edge of extinction, not by catastrophe, but by contentment. The end will not come with fire, but with fatigue. The question is not whether the last man exists, he does. The question is whether you will remain one, whether you will continue to seek sedation or dare to feel the friction that awakens the soul. Because comfort will not save you. It will only keep you asleep long enough for your potential to die quietly, without pain, without glory, without remembrance. Every civilization reaches a point where it must decide, remain comfortable or remain alive. Nietzsche believed that this choice would define the future of humanity. If the last man represents the end, the dull glow of a species that has surrendered its will, then the Overman, or Übermensch, represents the rebirth. He is not a ruler or a god, but a creator. The one who dares to live without guarantees, who makes meaning from the void. He is the antidote to comfort. To understand the Overman, you must first understand what Nietzsche meant by becoming. Life to Nietzsche was not a static state, but a continual process of overcoming, of becoming more than you were yesterday. This process is violent. It demands conflict with oneself. It requires destroying the parts of you that cling to safety, routine, and approval. What doesn't kill me makes me stronger, Nietzsche wrote. Not as a slogan, but as a psychological law. Growth and comfort are incompatible. The rebellion against comfort begins with awareness. It begins when you see how your habits sedate you, how your routines protect you from challenge, how your comforts numb your will. This awareness is painful, but it is also sacred, because it means you have begun to wake up. Jung would call this the first step toward individuation, the confrontation with one's own shadow. You see the cowardice, the laziness, the dependence, and instead of turning away, you look deeper. You begin to fight inwardly. To fight yourself is the most terrifying battle of all. It's easier to blame the world, to blame systems, to blame society. But Nietzsche's philosophy is merciless. The struggle for transcendence happens within. The chains of comfort are not outside you. They are psychological. They're your fear of failure, your addiction to distraction, your hunger for validation. To break them is not an act of rebellion against society, it's an act of rebellion against your own smallness. The Overman is born in solitude. He detaches from the herd not because he despises it, but because he understands its danger. The herd offers security, but it demands submission. It loves peace, but it kills passion. The one who seeks to rise must therefore separate, not physically, but spiritually. He must learn to think his own thoughts, to hold his own values, to endure the pain of being misunderstood. The higher we soar, Nietzsche wrote, the smaller we appear to those who cannot fly. This separation is not arrogance, it's responsibility. The overman does not retreat to mock the herd, he retreats to build himself. He doesn't demand freedom from others, he demands mastery over himself. His strength is not dominance, but self-command. He disciplines his mind as a warrior disciplines his soul. He learns to bear suffering without resentment, to create order from chaos, to turn pain into power. Where the last man flees from discomfort, the overman transforms it. Pain for the overman is no longer an enemy. It is information. It reveals what still binds him, what still limits him. Instead of asking, how can I avoid suffering? He asks, what is this suffering trying to teach me? Each moment of discomfort becomes an opportunity to forge new strength. He learns to welcome difficulty as a craftsman welcomes resistance, the friction that gives shape to creation. Through struggle, he becomes alive again. Nietzsche called this attitude amor fati, the love of fate. It's not mere acceptance of life's hardships, but an embrace of them. To say yes to everything, even to suffering, is to reclaim authorship of your own existence. The overman does not wait for life to be easier. He wills his life to be worthy of its pain. He says, let it come, let it hurt, let it teach me. This is the opposite of comfort. It is creative suffering. In psychological terms, this transformation demands integration, the uniting of opposites within oneself. The light and the dark, the fear and the desire, the weakness and the will. Jung described this as a union of the ego with the self, the moment when a person ceases to live as a fragment and becomes whole. The overman is the wholeness in motion. He no longer escapes the contradictions of life, he embodies them. He turns chaos into art, suffering into strength, solitude into vision. But this path is not for everyone. Nietzsche never promised salvation to all. Most will choose comfort, most will prefer sedation. The overman's path is narrow, lonely and brutal. It requires a kind of faith without religion, faith in one's own becoming. It is the courage to look into the abyss and not lose heart. It is the willingness to keep creating even when no meaning exists. Man is a rope, Nietzsche wrote, stretched between the animal and the overman. A rope over an abyss. To walk that rope is to live dangerously, not recklessly, but courageously. The overman accepts that life has no final security. He finds joy not in safety, but in movement, in the dance of becoming. He doesn't seek comfort because he understands that comfort is a form of death. He seeks intensity, experience, self-mastery. Each day becomes a test. Will I choose growth or ease? Will I confront reality or will I escape it? You don't need to abandon your life to begin this rebellion. You begin wherever you are, by choosing the harder path, by telling the truth when silence is easier, by doing the work when distraction calls, by facing discomfort without retreat. Each act of will, however small, reawakens the soul. The muscles of character rebuild through resistance. And slowly, something ancient stirs. The will to power. The primal force that drives life to expand, to rise, to overcome. This is what Nietzsche meant by the eternal recurrence. The idea that you should live as if you would repeat this life forever. Not as punishment, but as test. If you were to relive every decision, every joy, every suffering eternally, would you still say yes to it? The overman's answer is yes, because he has made his life his own creation. He no longer begs meaning from the universe, he gives it meaning through his will. That is the ultimate rebellion against comfort, to live deliberately, fiercely, joyfully, even amidst chaos. The last man seeks comfort because he fears death. The overman seeks creation because he understands that death is inevitable, but meaning is not. Comfort numbs the fear of dying. Creation transcends it. When you live with purpose, death loses its sting. You don't need eternity. You need intensity. The overman burns bright and short if he must, but he burns. He doesn't blink like the last man. He blazes like a star. And this is Nietzsche's final warning, and his gift. If you choose comfort over creation, you will die many times before your body does. You will die in every unchallenged day, every silenced truth, every unrealized dream. But if you choose to overcome, to confront your pain, to create your meaning, to live dangerously, then even your suffering becomes sacred. You become what Nietzsche called the meaning of the earth. You become alive. So, don't seek comfort. Seek clarity. Seek confrontation. Seek the friction that awakens your will. The world doesn't need more happiness. It needs more strength. More creators. More souls willing to bear the weight of freedom. Remember, comfort is the coffin of the spirit. Every soft escape is a slow death. Every act of courage is a rebirth. The herd will always invite you back, into safety, into silence, into sleep. But you are not meant to blink your way through life. You're meant to burn. You're meant to create. You're meant to become. Nietzsche's voice still echoes across the centuries, whispering to those who can hear, "The last man is coming, unless you rise." Well, that's it for today's episode. Thanks for joining me. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. And if you would like to see more content like this, please consider subscribing to the channel. And I'll see you guys next time.